Good evening, everyone. You're watching Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider on this 27th of February. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information at 1-800-472-0391. That, of course, is your Alaska Weather Information line. Weather.gov/Alaska is your source online for all of the weather information that you see here on the show tonight. It will update overnight and into the early morning hours with official information from the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit. Your weather forecast offices in Fairbanks, Juneau, and Anchorage. Of course, the River Forecast Center measuring snowfall and ice thickness this time of the year. And also looking forward to breakup, which is coming pretty quickly. So pay attention to the things as we head into the spring. You can always reach me at david.snider@noaa.gov. That is an easy way to get more information about something you see here on the show, a question, concern, or comment you have, or to ask weather questions. And if I don't know the answer, I can certainly find the right people that can. And after today, you can still reach me there as well, because tomorrow I won't be on Alaska Weather anymore. I'd like to say goodbye and thank you. As of tonight, this is my last show on Alaska Weather after almost 9 years of service here. I am moving on to the National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska, not leaving Alaska, still serving Alaska, but taking on a new role and continuing to serve our coastal communities in a different way. In the summer of 2011, I came up here and got an opportunity in the coming years to visit places like this. This is New Talk, and forgive me, I've forgotten the name of my friend here that followed me around all day in New Talk on the boardwalk that day, and she pointed out all the important things, like the Alaska Rural Communication Service transmitter and receiver system there. It's probably a familiar sight in many of your communities. And I quickly learned and came to understand how important and critical some of our communication services are around Alaska and how they work. And so I would encourage you to learn about how that works and understand why things like this are very important to many of our communities if you don't understand that right now. So I would like to take this moment to say thank you to our friends and colleagues at the Alaska Public Media System there, Alaska Public Broadcasting, of course, which is in charge of the Alaska Rural Communication Service, but Alaska Public Media is our first step in delivering the message to your community. But also KTOO in Juneau and 360 North. Those folks provide the message up to the Alaska Rural Communication Service and the ARCS system, which is actually housed in KUAC. And we appreciate their service as well to Fairbanks on the UAF broadcast system there as well. All the folks there in public media around the state have played a critical role to our Alaska Weather Service throughout the years. Of course, KYUK and all of our public radio partners that have transmitted our message in that way, too, provided a great service to your community. Every day, I think about my visit to New Talk. I think about what it takes to get the message to you and to the people that understand the message and are acting upon the information that we share with you in this way. And by looking at pictures like this, it reminds me of how important my job is to do well and to do right. But it also reminds me of the trust that you have in me and in the team here to deliver that message and to get that right. And I trust that you know how hard we work on that, and I appreciate that trust that you give us when you hear and see that message. I know that we all live on the coast, on a river, and depend on aviation and boats to get to where we're going. It's important for food, for safety, for education. It's a way of life. And I appreciate, again, the opportunity to serve you in this way in such a unique community and unique service in our nation. So if there is one regret I have, it is that I did not learn how to say winter storm watch, warning, advisory in your language. I'm still working on it. I'll continue to work on it, and I hope I get it right in the coming years. But if you would, allow me to say, Kiana, thank you. I appreciate you, and we'll see you again soon. Alaska is a pretty small place. Now, let's get on with the weather. Less about me, more about the weather. Up north, winter weather advisories continue across the North Slope. That looks to go into at least Friday, maybe even Saturday. Winds will be coming up with a slow-moving front crossing in from northwest to east. That'll bring in a little bit of snow, a little more wind, and the cold is still in place and not going anywhere. And because of that, visibility is going to come down to about a half mile. Wind chills will probably be the other big factor with that, and wind chill values could drop to about 50 to 55 below. And if you're doing your math and you're thinking, it sounds like a winter weather or winter wind chill advisory or warning, you're right. You're getting very close to those levels there. They haven't issued those yet, but for right now, winter weather advisory for poor visibility and mostly kind of nasty winter cold. So the cold will feel worse. Be careful out there. As I always say, let someone know that you're coming, let them know when you left, and have a plan in case you get stuck, because this is not the kind of weather you want to be stuck in. Same goes for out west. The orange color means watch. This is a winter storm watch for the western Aleutians that'll go into effect Friday afternoon, continue into Saturday afternoon, as weather is approaching from southwest to north and east. And here's why. You can't see it on the map just yet, but you will in a moment. Clouds approaching from the west and southwest indicate a new weather system moving out of the North Pacific and heading to the southern Bering. Right now, we have low pressure across the northern panhandle and a little bit of rain for Haines, snow in Skagway, rain for Yakutat, so a whole lot of different weather right here around that low pressure system. Rain for most of the panhandle. In fact, showers will continue on and off throughout the weekend, but once this passes, you should get a little bit of a break for about a day or two, and then another surge moves in through the weekend. High pressure is in charge of the interior right now. That's great for flying, VFR in most areas there, but it's also trapping pollutants and particulates there across the Middle Tanana Valley. The Division of Environmental Conservation there in the state of Alaska continues with alerts for air quality there, so make sure you're checking up on those. South Central, looking at more northerly winds, dry weather for most of Southwest, but there's some clouds and snow showers floating around the YK Delta. And then you get back into generally fair weather for most of the central and western coast at this point with an offshore flow. That's going to change quickly, though, out across southeast. The front is moving into southeast now with that onshore flow, looking at rainfall continuing at 991 millibars. The low's not that strong, and it is falling apart. Behind that, colder air is flowing offshore, working to the south and southeast, and as we get into tonight, that trend's going to continue. The breezes may stay up in places like Palmer and the Kinnick Valley a little bit. Not too terrible, certainly not the worst you've had. And then out across the west, we make room for our next weather system working into the central and western chain. The first part of this is not going to be that bad. The winds will come up from the south, and as we get into Friday afternoon, a lot of this area here will change over into snow. As long as the storm track stays on track, that's the plan. For areas in the central and eastern chain, Nikolsky to Unalaska and Dutch Harbor, it looks like we'll see rain and snow initially. The winds will come up sharply from the south and then begin to switch around. Part of that will break off to the east and move into Bristol Bay. That means a better chance for snow in south central. And offshore flow strengthens from the YK Delta all the way through St. Matthew, St. Paul, St. George, and we're watching the track of this storm closely. First, here's why. As this low is tracking to the north and east, the back side of this has northerly winds on it. And that part looks like it's going to pass into the St. Paul to St. Matthew Island waters. If that's the case, that could push the ice edge southward about 20 to 30 nautical miles as we go through the weekend. So if you're talking to your crabbing family and friends, not that they're crabby, they are crabbing, make sure they know that's the case. And the Alaska Sea Ice Program is happy to talk to them and give them an ice forecast for their position. For Bristol Bay, the southerly winds will be more of an issue there for the YK Delta, and what that means is the ice that is not shore fast, and it looks like there's a lot of that, will also be on the move, but more northward there. So a lot of this area here is going to see some ice edge changes, and if you're on the coast or if you're out across the waters there, those changes could certainly affect what you're doing. Around South Central, snow is going to fall. The winds are going to come up along the Sterling Highway all the way from Kachemak Bay to Kenai, Soldotna, and up toward Cooper Landing. If you're driving into Girdwood or Anchorage this weekend, you're going to notice the snow and the wind, and we're also going to get some snow and wind out around Big Lake and probably west of the Parks Highway. So plan on travel issues, maybe not travel troubles, but you're certainly going to notice the weather moving in on Saturday if you're driving around or flying for that matter. Right now it looks about 3 to 6 inches of snow across some parts of the western Kenai, and again, factoring that wind, that means visibility is going to come down. Snow showers possible across the northern parts of southeast on Saturday. The primary weather for you won't be there until late Saturday evening and afternoon probably. As we start our morning on Friday, temps anywhere from 25 to 35 below across most of the North Slope communities and the interior. South of Fairbanks, temperatures fall off from 0 to about 20 below. And for South Central, single-digit temps there, 21 in Kodiak. For Southeast, mid to upper 30s are expected there, maybe a little bit closer to freezing across the northern panhandle. 6 below in Nome, 5 below in McCormick, 23 above for St. Paul, mid-30s for the central chain. High temperatures on Friday. It looks like we'll see readings back in the teens and 20s, 33 in Kodiak, 35 for Sandpoint. Southeast, we're looking at highs back in the 30s and 40s, so warming up. You might see a little bit of sunshine breaking through the clouds from time to time. Anywhere from 10 to 25 below across the North Slope. And again, that does not factor in the wind chill value there. It's going to be brutal there as those weather waves pass over. 5 for Gamble and Savunga, 10 in McCormick, 2 in Bethel. It looks like McGrath will be closer to 0. A warm spell for you, 5 below in Galena for Friday afternoon. For Saturday morning, look for temps in the 20s and 30s there. Prince William Sound, Cordova, and Whittier. Looking at morning temperatures there above zero, but still in the teens. Kodiak 22. The Alaska Peninsula holding in the lower 30s, 28 in St. Paul, 37 for Adak and Atka. Shemya looking at 29. Anywhere from 20 to 30 below across the North Slope. Fairbanks about 24 below. Saturday afternoon, temperatures will hold in the mid-30s across the north, maybe as cold as 33 degrees for Haines and Skagway and Yakutat. South of that, Sitka, Ketchikan, Metlakatla, Annette, all looking at lower 40s there. Prince William Sound moves above freezing for Cordova, maybe not so much for Valdez and Whittier. 26 in Homer, 34 in Kodiak, and temps in Bristol Bay anywhere from the 20s around Dillingham. King Salmon at 34, and the Alaska Peninsula in the lower 40s. Fairbanks moves up to 1 above, 22 in Talkeetna, and Utqiagvik about 9 below as you go into Saturday afternoon.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
And back with your aviation weather now. We expect to see IFR off the Chukchi coast as we start your Friday morning out across the central and western Bering ahead of that next storm. IFR will be all over the central and western chain and pushing its way toward the Pribilofs. You'll see several waves working through as the frontal boundary works to the north and to the east and as the low pressure system gets closer to the west coast. Watch for IFR to continue across the north and eastern Gulf Coast, places like Yakutat into Cross Sound and occasionally into the Inside Passage. We'll see some of that developing as we get into Friday. Marginal conditions will start your Friday there, and we'll also see some marginal areas into the upper Tanana Valley and parts of the Copper River Valley. Most of South Central will enjoy a VFR start tomorrow morning, but watch for MVFR across parts of the western Kenai Peninsula down into Kachemak Bay and over the Barren Islands, but not quite to Kodiak. That trend will continue for Friday afternoon. Marginal conditions spreading eastward and into northern parts of the Panhandle. IFR for Cross Sound, Gustavus, Glacier Bay, and up toward McCarthy and the Alcan border. Most areas in the upper Tanana Valley and the Copper River Valley are probably looking at marginal conditions. Most of that will linger further and further south as we get into the afternoon. Out west, IFR continues for St. Paul, St. George, and all of the Aleutians, wrapping its way around into Sand Point and the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula as we go through your Friday. On Saturday morning, IFR wrapping around low pressure here. You can see that drier air pulling in and improving conditions briefly for the central chain. Watch for winds to come up there. Marginal concerns across the interior, and more of that also developing across the Chukchi coast and working its way into the Beaufort with IFR to the north and west. As we get into Saturday afternoon, marginal conditions there across parts of the western North Slope. IFR spreads out into southwest, moves into south central, especially Prince William Sound, Kenai Fjords, and Kodiak Island region. Not quite into southeast just yet. We're looking for a VFR afternoon for Saturday, but this right here indicates a chance for some downsloping wind, so we'll be watching for turbulence to show up perhaps by the end of the weekend as well. For Friday in Anaktuvuk and Adigan Pass, things look pretty good. VFR as you go through the northern passes all around the Alaska range, things look fairly nice. Rainy Pass all the way to Windy and Isabel Pass, all should be VFR for your Friday. Mentasta Pass starts our day with marginal concerns that will last through the afternoon. Tanita Pass looking pretty good right now for your Friday. VFR there. Portage probably seeing marginal conditions developing as we go through the afternoon. Chilkoot and White Pass also expected to see marginal ceilings and viz as we go through your afternoon there. Freezing levels indicate that warm air we saw across southeast is slinking to the south and east out of the region as we go through Friday. The surface freezing line is still hovering right over the Alaska Peninsula, just south of Kodiak and just right over the capital city. In fact, most areas in the interior, of course, sub-freezing in the morning. The next storm system is bringing in warmer air from the south, approaching Adak and Atka with a 2,000-foot freezing level just to your south right now. So icing concerns are still present. They're still generally minimal, isolated moderate at worst right now, generally north of Adak and Atka, below 7,000 feet and above 2,000, wrapping into Shemya. And across southeast from about 9,000 feet down to about 3,000 feet. Levels are just a hair lower and a little more slender, I guess I would say, across Ketchikan and Annette and Metlakatla there as you get into your Friday afternoon. The jet stream right now has two areas of low pressure, one of those sitting across southern southeast and another west of Shemya and east of the Kamchatka Peninsula. Northwesterly flow picking up from about 75 knots on that Arctic push, and the Pacific jet around 150 knots there. This is the more active stream here where all the moisture is riding along. This system here in the west will be our next one as this is progressing eastward. A pretty active weather system right now, so one storm right after the other is what we mean when we say active weather. Out across the west, low pressure sits out across the western end of the chain. The southerlies coming in there at 50 to 80 knots at 9,000 feet. A broad westerly flow across the interior, 15 to 30 knots. And then our other low pressure system here across Haida Gwaii and the Dixon entrance, dragging in westerlies around 30 knots or so. At 3,000 feet, winds are a little bit stronger here for the central and eastern chain, 50 to 60 knots, maybe 65 knots on the northern side, just northwest of St. Paul out towards St. Matthew. Westerlies around the Brooks Range there. Winds are generally light across south central from the north around 10 to 20 knots, and a weaker onshore flow here across southeast 10 to 25, again at 3,000 feet. As far as turbulence goes, below 6,000 feet there for the northern and central parts of the Panhandle. A little bit of considerable moderate expected tomorrow. Some light chop across the northwest below 4,000 feet, and with the incoming storm, we will expect to see a little bit more widespread, considerable moderate across the chain, and a chance for some isolated severe as some of the strongest winds are moving through that region. Again, all of that below 4,000 feet, and should be pretty quick to pass throughout the day. We'll be back with a look at the educational segment, of course, your sea ice update and marine weather coming up.
Greetings, fellow stargazers. 2020 is a leap year, so we add a day to the calendar. Why? Astronomy, of course. You grew up learning the year as 365 days, but it's actually 365.25 days. If we didn't adjust with leap year, eventually the calendar wouldn't align with the seasons or the stars, so we add a day every 4 years. It's not exact, so we skip some leap years and centuries divisible by 400, but hey, nothing is perfect. The sky on Leap Day doesn't stop and wait for the next day, but we'll have amazing astronomical objects out there. In the southwestern sky, you'll see Orion the Hunter and Taurus the Bull, the dazzling Pleiades star cluster, a beautiful crescent moon, and a super bright planet Venus. Thanks to this extra day, the stars and seasons are where they're supposed to be when you keep looking up.
If you've been watching this series, you know that NASA has scientists posted all over the world studying Earth's frozen regions. We've got people exploring ice sheets, glaciers, permafrost, sea ice, snow, and even ice on other planets. But even our top scientists need a little backup sometimes.
Do you like going outside to do science?
Yeah,
Why?
because it's fun.
Yeah. What's your favorite part?
Frost tube.
Frost tube! Cool!
In this bonus episode of Cryosphere, we're following the micro explorers that are helping NASA collect data from their own backyard.
Do you think it's going to be frozen?
Yeah.
Yes? Why?
Because it's very frozen!
Here's the idea. Students construct a frost tube that gets put into a hole in undisturbed and uncompacted soil. During the cold months, students will measure the depth at which water in the frost tube freezes, indicating that the surrounding soil has frozen. This is one of many citizen science projects facilitated by GLOBE, the Global Learning and Observations to Benefit the Environment program.
What's going on? What did you find out?
It's the ice!
How far down is the ice? So is there still liquid in there?
It's a worldwide program that, so far, has collected over 130 million measurements from more than 10 million students in 113 countries.
Are you scientists?
Yeah.
These measurements are added to a massive worldwide database that's free and open to the public.
GLOBE connects my students with the rest of the world through science and looking at climate change and how it's affecting the future.
GLOBE teachers like Terry are transforming the way kids see science and how they'll respond to changes in their future environment.
Let me see your happy face. Ah!
Actually, we were so impressed with the kids of John Fredson's school that we decided to show their work to the scientists in the original NASA Explorers Cryosphere series. And they had a couple things to say.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
Oh my god. Do you like going outside to do science? Why?
Because it's fun.
How far down is the ice?
That's awesome.
Wow, this is really, really cool.
Hey students from Miss Terry's class, I just got to see your video. I was so impressed that you guys were braving the conditions of the snow and all the crazy stuff to go and learn more about the permafrost and where the water layer is right outside your school. That looked incredible.
It is so exciting to see you guys and girls doing such great work as we watch our planet change over time.
Hey there, young scientists. Looks like you guys are doing some amazing things. Remember to keep warm and take notes, and also stay curious.
Oh my God, this is awesome. I love seeing the enthusiasm of these kids. They're outside, it's obviously really cold, but everyone is so excited to be out there making measurements for NASA. That's wicked cool.
Because you're so right, science is so fun, and I really hope that you'll continue believing in that. The best piece of advice I ever got was, whatever you do, do your best.
And from all of us here at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, remember, dare mighty things.
So keep up the great work. Make sure that you're having fun no matter what. That's the key thing about pursuing a career in science. Make sure it's something that you love. And I'm really impressed. So hopefully we'll take the lessons you're learning and apply them when we explore our solar system.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And back with a look at your sea ice edge. Once again, we're going to watch the area from St. Paul to about St. Matthew. This area here on the west side of that weather system, as we get into Saturday and Sunday, may move southward about 20 to 30 nautical miles. So again, make sure you're checking on the ice forecast. You can do that at weather.gov/Alaska. And then look for ice information on the website there. You can also go to weather.gov/Anchorage/ice for the latest ice map and forecast for your area. On the east side of that weather system, looks like ice may move northward a little bit. A lot of this is going to be on the move with those southerly winds, so certainly warmer temperatures, but also movement of that ice edge as we go, and that includes areas around Bristol Bay. As always, we take a look at the marine forecast at this point, and a south and easterly flow will continue across Stevens Passage and into the Lynn Canal. Gust of 40 knots tomorrow in the north, with winds anywhere from 15 to 25 knots there from the south and southeast. Clarence Strait and most of the outer coast looking at a west and northwesterly flow as that weather system continues to press north and east as we go into Saturday. Winds will continue out of the north for your Saturday afternoon, 20 to 35 knots there on the inside, 4 to 7 foot seas in the north, 3 foot seas in the south, that northwesterly flow. And generally a west and northwesterly flow across the outer coast. You can see the seas and the winds coming down there as we go into Saturday. A little bit more of a southeasterly draw working around Icy Cape and Cape Fairweather by the end of the afternoon. In south central, Prince William Sound looking at a 20-knot wind at 3 foot seas. Northwesterlies gusty out of the Copper River Delta. 35 knots there with a 9 foot sea. You'll see 9 foot seas all the way into the Barren Islands with that northwesterly flow at 30 knots. And 10 to 15 over the ice in Cook Inlet. 3 foot seas south of Clam Gulch there with that northerly wind at 15 knots. For Saturday, a north and easterly flow, 20 to 35 knots, 11 to 12 foot seas there. Southerlies coming into the Kenai Fjords, 25 to 30 knots with 7 foot seas. And easterlies develop inside of Prince William Sound, 15 knots and 3 foot seas there for the beginning of your weekend. As the weather's changing in southwest, watch for westerlies inside of Shelikof Strait with a 5 foot sea on a 25-knot wind, 25 to 30 as you head into the North Pacific. Southeasterlies coming into Sand Point and the southern end of the Pacific coastline there. Look for 20 knots and 10 foot seas on the other side, 2 foot seas and 15-knot winds closer to the ice edge. You'll see a return of southwesterlies picking up as we go into Saturday. 7 foot seas there over the ice, an easterly flow, 30 knots inside of Bristol Bay. South and westerlies on the Pacific coast, 35 knots with 14 to 17 foot seas. For Kodiak Island, winds will be changing throughout the day, and east and southeasterly flow developing, 25 to 35 with 6 foot seas on the inside and 12 foot seas as you head out toward the Gulf. Across the Aleutians, a lot of changing weather for Friday and Saturday. A southeasterly flow strengthening, 35 to 50 knots north of Atka. Look for Pacific waters to see 10 to 14 foot seas. Bering Seacoast waters, 7 to 15 foot seas, 16 to 17 foot seas out in the west with an easterly flow at 45. And then you get into a lot of changes for Saturday as low pressure is strengthening, driving right over Adak, between Adak and Kiska really. That southwesterly flow will continue. Look for higher winds, higher seas throughout the day. Anywhere from 25 to 40 knots sustained, though. Higher gusts in the area with 17-foot seas in the east. And the wraparound cold is really what's going to make a difference, again, in that precipitation, with a winter storm watch posted for areas for the western chain for Friday afternoon to Saturday afternoon. That means accumulating snow and probably very poor visibility. Across the west, easterlies over Norton Sound very light at 5 knots. Northerlies coming down through Eatoll and Strait, Nunivak Island, and into the Kuskokwim Delta. Easterlies continue for St. Paul and St. George at 25 knots with a 5-foot sea, 6-foot seas around the St. Matthew Island waters in the open water, and easterlies there. We're watching for northerly winds to develop, though, on the backside of that weather system, and that's very important, again, to the ice edge, which could move about 20 to 30 nautical miles to the south. So pay attention to that. Southerlies right now for St. Paul and St. George, 25 knots and 10-foot seas on Saturday, and easterlies picking up around St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound. For Friday, across the North Slope, southwesterlies across the Chukchi coast and the Beaufort, 15 to 20 there, 20 to 25 for the Chukchi, southerlies in Kotzebue Sound. As we go into Saturday, southwesterlies continue for the Chukchi coast and also for the Beaufort Sea coast, 15 to 20 there, all over the ice. The southeasterly flow inside of Kotzebue Sound should be a little bit lighter at 10 knots. All right, here's my last weather forecast for Alaska with the maps on Alaska Weather. Thanks again for watching. Low pressure sitting across the northern Gulf, 1,002 millibars there. We're going to keep rain and snow showers going across parts of southeast tonight, but that should be trending down as we go into Saturday. High pressure, dry skies, VFR mostly tonight, southwesterlies, probably moving offshore. Generally a fairly nice weather night for most areas, but cold. As we look out to the North Pacific, the next weather system's coming into the chain as we go through Friday and into Saturday. That will strengthen, bring up a lot of wind, a chance for some snow in the western chain, and moving the ice around in the Bering. So be careful out there on land and sea. It's been my privilege to serve you. Thanks for watching.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.